Good evening, everyone. I'm Lissy Bastien. It's Thursday, November 26th. Happy Thanksgiving, Bahamas. Thanks for staying with us. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis adamant that a new proclamation is not to impose new measures or extend other measures, but rather that the government is only trying to protect the health of the Bahamian people. Dr. Minnis made these remarks during debate on the resolution to extend the emergency proclamation to the 31st of January 2021. Dr. Minnis says the proclamation of emergency and Parliament's authorization of emergency powers grants the government of the day the legal authority to act to protect Bahamians.
We are not here today to extend a curfew. We are not here to enforce a lockdown. We are not here, Mr. Speaker, to announce additional restrictions on any island. We are simply here to extend the period under which an emergency power exists. It is then up to government, guided by the advice of the public health team, to determine if restrictions are needed for a period of time in order to prevent sickness and death.
Dr. Minnis says under the emergency powers, many islands are under fewer restrictions because of no viral cases. He used Barbados as an example of countries that have extended their state of emergency, Barbados having extended to March 2021.
And the measures we seek to extend today merely allows us to have the legal authority to act in case we need to use certain measures. This does not mean that all of these measures are being used at a given time. In the Bahamas, Mr. Speaker, we decided to extend our emergency measures for shorter periods than a number of other countries. And this allows us to keep assessing the current status of the pandemic and the need for such measures.
The Prime Minister says if the government waits too long to act, many more people will get sick, many more people will have to be hospitalized, and many people will subsequently die.
One case could lead to an outbreak. Hundreds and hundreds of people could get sick and subsequently die. And our public health team, Mr. Speaker, is working extremely hard in monitoring the situation, collecting data, and advising us as to the way forward, as to what should be done so as to minimize the spread of this infection and subsequently hospitalization and possibly death.
Dr. Minnis suggests that it would be highly irresponsible and reckless for the country not to use emergency powers during the pandemic, noting that the opposition would have had to make their own decisions if they were in office, but they would be advised by the same health officials, which is advising the government, and that they are being guided by. In our national COVID-19 news, the Ministry of Health's COVID-19 report update 244 confirming 13 new cases of COVID-19 along with 56 recovered cases as of Wednesday. There are now 7,482 total confirmed cases in country. As for the new cases, New Providence leading with 8 new cases, Grand Bahama with 3, and Abaco and Exuma with 1 case each. Of the confirmed cases, 7 are females and 6 are males. 21 cases remain hospitalized, all moderately ill. There are a total of 1,475 active cases. 204 tests were completed on Wednesday, 176 negative, and 6 were repeated tests. The death toll remains at 163. Well, the country now has a COVID-19 recovery rate of 77.4%. This much coming from Health Minister Renwood Wells this afternoon during his contribution to the debate on the resolution to extend the emergency powers order to January 31st, 2021. A total of 42,558 RT-PCR tests have been completed to date, while 56 recoveries have been recorded yesterday. That same day, a total of 204 tests were completed, 176 of which came back negative. Additionally, there's currently 0 cases in the ICU.
The average positivity rate over the past week, this epi week, was 8.6%. Down, Mr. Speaker, from an average in October and early November of 17%. Mr. Speaker, at one point in time, one day we were up around 32% for our positivity rate. And the Bahamian people should know that WHO would like to see a positivity rate below 5%. And on Tuesday and yesterday, our positivity rates were below 5%.
Add to that, the country has seen no new COVID-19 deaths since November 19th, keeping the death toll at 163 for the past 10 days. Member of Parliament for East Grand Bahama Peter Turnquest has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance yesterday. His resignation follows his alleged involvement, along with Sky Bahamas CEO Captain Randy Butler, in defrauding 2 companies of some $20 million through what's being labeled as bogus loan schemes. A writ filed by the law firm Scott & Co. on November 16th lists Alpha Aviation Limited and Advanced Aviation Limited as the first and second plaintiffs. Now, while Mr. Turnquest isn't listed as a defendant in the matter, the court documents allege that he was a director and manager of both plaintiffs during that time. He says his resignation was to protect his family and in the best interest of his constituency and party. He adds that when he met with the Prime Minister yesterday, he informed him that while he is confident of his reputation of transparency and accountability, and that will be vindicated once the allegations against him have fully been ventilated through the courts, he says he didn't want a private business dispute, which occurred prior to his taking public office, to become a distraction to the government or the important national work that lies ahead. Mr. Turnquest says he'll address the circumstances of those allegations against him and the actors that have perpetrated it at an appropriate time. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis accepted Mr. Turnquest's resignation and thanked him for his service to the country, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Prime Minister says he will serve as Interim Minister of Finance and will make a substantive appointment in due course. Well, the Progressive Liberal Party says the resignation of Peter Turnquest as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance was inevitable, adding that the allegations in the lawsuit are too serious and too scandalous for him to remain in such an important position. Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Davis contends that Bahamians are looking at the thinness of the FNM bench and worrying that there is no one of sufficient competence to lead that ministry, as he notes that the position of Minister of Finance remains essentially vacant. Mr. Davis questions who will give confidence to the Bahamians and international financial institutions that the public finances of the country are in safe hands. He adds that in the meantime, the panicked late-night proclamation of a new state of emergency is a corrupt power grab by the Prime Minister, who wants to operate without scrutiny or accountability. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.
This segment of the news was brought to you by Alive.